The price of perfection, how trying to be enough, becomes emotional bankruptcy. The currency of the soul. The purpose of life is to be defeated by greater and greater things. Rainer Maria Rilke. There's a quiet kind of commerce that lives beneath our waking life. Not the exchange of money, but of meaning. We trade pieces of our soul, truth for belonging, silence for safety, perfection for love. It begins so early we forget it was ever a choice. We learn to polish the edges of the self, to smooth what is too real. To smile where we should tremble. And to stand still where life is asking us to move. As Leonard Cohen once sang, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. But in the pursuit of being enough, we seal those cracks. We become polished, flawless, unlit. Perfection feels like peace. Until you notice the silence underneath it. The silence of a self too careful to feel. This story is about that silence. About the unseen cost of trying to be everything. Until you no longer remember what you truly are. The silent transaction. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Every day, in small and invisible ways, we trade authenticity for approval. We shape our tone, posture, even our silence, to fit the economy of belonging. The price seems small. A nod, a smile, a role maintained. But over time, the currency of self thins out. We begin to spend our truth just to survive our reflection. Perfection begins here. Not as ambition, but as fear. Fear of being seen as incomplete, inadequate, or unworthy of love. The mirror of mind. We are what we pretend to be, so we must be careful about what we pretend to be. Kurt Vonnegut. In the mind's mirror, image replaces identity. We edit our reflections to appear whole, competent, composed. But the mirror does not show the cost. The dissonance between who we are and who we must appear to be becomes a kind of quiet madness. A life spent acting in a film that no one else is watching. The psyche bends around the illusion, mistaking conformity for connection. What we call self-improvement often conceals self-erasure. The wound of comparison. Man is so made that he can only find relaxation from one kind of labor by taking up another. Anatole France. Comparison, once a tool for learning, becomes a trap of perpetual measurement. Social mirrors multiply. Digital, professional, emotional, and each one whispers, "You could be more." But the standard keeps moving. Every gain becomes a loss when the metric is endless. The wound of comparison is self-reinforcing. We bleed authenticity to maintain relevance. The illusion of safety. People would rather have a false sense of security than face the truth. Erich Fromm. Perfection promises safety, that if we do everything right, nothing will fall apart. Yet life, by design, is made of entropy. To be perfect is to resist life itself. We armor ourselves with discipline, order, and control, not realizing that the armor also seals us off from intimacy, spontaneity, and awe. We fear the chaos of truth more than the comfort of illusion. The anatomy of approval. What a man thinks of himself determines, or rather indicates, his fate. Henry David Thoreau. Approval is the most addictive substance in the psyche. It lights the same neural pathways as survival, because once, belonging was survival. So we chase it, likes, nods, validation, until the brain equates acceptance with existence. But the hunger never ends, because the more we outsource our worth, the less we feel it internally. To be perfect in the eyes of others is to become invisible to yourself. The performance of the self. Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol or morphine or idealism. Carl Jung. We curate ourselves into symbols, ideal partners, ideal workers, ideal souls. The performance is subtle, often unconscious, yet the stage lights of expectation burn hot. The body begins to protest, insomnia, fatigue, emotional numbness. The psyche grows wary from maintaining the illusion of stability. The performance of perfection becomes a theater of quiet despair. The algorithm of the mind. We become what we repeatedly do. William James. Perfectionism is not a trait. It is an algorithm. Repetition, reward, reinforcement. Every success rewires the mind toward conditional worth. I am valuable only when I perform. The nervous system learns this rhythm until it becomes a reflex. Even rest feels like guilt. Even silence feels like failure. The human mind, once designed for exploration, becomes a closed loop of self-optimization. The tyranny of the inner judge. In the final analysis, we count for something only because of the essential we embody. Viktor Frankl. There is a voice that never sleeps, the internal auditor, the perfectionist judge. It measures, compares, criticizes, and calls itself discipline. But its authority is inherited from fear, not wisdom. We were trained to equate flawlessness with love, competence with safety, and control with dignity. Yet beneath the precision lies terror, the terror of being ordinary, forgotten, or human. The inner judge does not seek truth, it seeks protection. The collapse of the mask. Man is the only creature who refuses to be what he is. Albert Camus. Eventually, the mask begins to crack. Fatigue sets in, not physical, but existential. The exhaustion of maintaining perfection becomes heavier than the fear of being seen. Tears arrive where productivity used to be. Silence replaces the performance. The collapse, though painful, is also sacred. It is the psyche's way of saying, enough pretending. Now, become real. The birth of compassion. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Carl Rogers. In the ruins of perfection, something tender appears, compassion. Not the soft sentiment of indulgence, but the fierce honesty of seeing oneself without disguise. Self-acceptance is not surrender. It is the end of unconscious war. It allows growth without shame, effort without fear, and evolution without self-hatred. The psyche breathes again, realizing that imperfection was never the enemy, only the teacher. The return to authenticity. You are the universe experiencing itself. Alan Watts. To live authentically is to dissolve the false boundary between what is seen and what is felt. No longer must we edit the self to fit the world. The enough we were chasing was always an illusion, a mirage created by comparison and fear. Authenticity does not demand perfection. It reveals wholeness already present. In that realization, even the smallest act of honesty becomes an act of freedom. The true economy of the psyche. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Friedrich Nietzsche. The price of perfection is emotional bankruptcy. A life spent managing impressions rather than meaning. But awareness restores balance. The moment we see the trade. Authenticity for approval. Truth for comfort. We begin to reclaim our inner economy. To live consciously is not to escape imperfection, but to embrace it as the raw material of truth. This is the expensive psyche, where we explore what it truly costs to live unconsciously. Thanks for your time. It's been a delight. What should we explore next? Comment, share, and save your insight. Subscribe to Orbital Reads and keep your thoughts bright.